I used to think parents exaggerated when they whispered about their kids acting strange. I used to smile politely, nodding along while secretly rolling my eyes at PTA gossip. But then it started happening to us, and suddenly, I wasn't laughing anymore. It began when my daughter, Emily, came home one Friday and hugged me just a little too tightly. Her arms stayed wrapped around me longer than usual. Her small face pressed against my chest. At first I thought it was sweet, cute even, but when she finally pulled away, she looked up at me with a smile that wasn't hers. It was too sharp, too practiced, like she'd been watching someone else smile and was trying to copy it, and her eyes, they were wrong, not in color, not in shape, but in depth. They looked old, like someone much older was staring out from behind them. That weekend, she barely spoke. She just watched. Watched me cook. Watched me clean. Watched me read. Sometimes I caught her mouth moving slightly like she was whispering, but when I asked, she insisted she hadn't said anything. By Monday, I was rattled enough to mention it to another parent while waiting outside the school. To my surprise, she didn't laugh. She didn't roll her eyes. She leaned closer and said, "It's happening to us too." Her son, apparently, had started talking in words he'd never learned. Words in languages they didn't speak at home. He'd stare at her in the middle of the night and whisper things he couldn't possibly know. I wanted to dismiss it, to pretend she was just another paranoid mom, but I couldn't. Not after what Emily had done the night before. She'd stood outside my bedroom door, silent, still, and when I'd cracked the door open, she'd whispered, "Don't look at me like I'm your daughter." The whispers spread like wildfire among the parents. One father swore his little girl's reflection didn't match her anymore, that when she smiled in the mirror, her reflection kept smiling even after she stopped. Another claimed his son's voice changed every night, that sometimes it sounded like a man. A mother said she'd walked into her child's room and found him sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes rolled back, humming a song she'd never heard before. No one wanted to say it out loud, but the truth was obvious. Something was wrong with all of our children. It came to a head during a school assembly. The kids lined up on stage, ready to sing a harmless, cheerful song. But when the music started, they didn't sing. They just stood there, every single one of them, silent, staring into the crowd. Hundreds of parents shifting uncomfortably, whispering. And then, all at once, the children blinked in perfect unison, slow, deliberate, as though rehearsed. And they smiled. That same too wide, too perfect smile I'd seen on Emily. The auditorium went silent. No one moved, and then the lights went out. When they flickered back on, the children were gone, all of them. The teachers screamed. Parents rushed the stage, but the kids had vanished. I pushed through the chaos, searching desperately. My chest was tight, my heart thundering, and then I heard it, Emily's voice from behind me. "Daddy." I turned and froze. She was standing at the back of the auditorium, away from the other kids. Her eyes were wide, gleaming in the dim light, and in them, I saw something that made my stomach drop. It wasn't her. Not anymore. When I saw Emily at the back of the auditorium, I knew. That wasn't my little girl looking back at me. Her small frame was the same. Her curls were the same. But those eyes, they didn't belong to a child. They belonged to something ancient. I pushed through the crowd, desperate to reach her. "Emily," I shouted. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She just tilted her head and smiled, that too wide smile, and then, in a voice too deep, too steady, she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." The chaos around me swelled. Parents screaming, teachers crying, phones flashing. Kids were missing. Every single one that had stood on the stage. But my Emily wasn't missing. She was standing right in front of me, or at least something wearing her skin was. I grabbed her hand. It was ice cold. "Come on, we're going home," I said through clenched teeth. Her smile didn't falter. "This isn't home." I pulled her toward the doors, ignoring the horrified stares of the other parents. But as we reached the exit, I glanced back and froze. Because all the other children were there now, lined up along the walls of the auditorium. Silent. Still. Their eyes gleaming in unison, watching me leave. That night, I locked every door, every window. I made Emily sleep in my room where I could watch her, but she didn't sleep. She lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. At one point, I dozed off. When I woke, she was standing over me, her face inches from mine, her lips moving, whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they weren't meant for me. The next morning, I called the school. No answer. I called the police. They told me I wasn't the only one reporting strange things. Whole neighborhoods were in panic. Children standing in the street at night. Children whispering in languages no one knew. Children watching their parents sleep. I confronted Emily that evening. My hand shook as I spoke. "What are you?" I demanded. For the first time, she laughed. Not the sweet giggle of my little girl, but a low echoing sound that didn't belong in her small chest. "We're what comes next," she said calmly. Her eyes rolled back until only the whites showed, and then she turned and walked straight toward the closet. I shouted, begged, pleaded, but she didn't stop. She opened the closet door, stepped inside and closed it behind her. I yanked it open, heart hammering, but she was gone. The closet was empty, just coats, shoes, dust, and on the floor, scratched into the wood, were words I'll never forget. "She was never yours." The other kids never came back either, at least not the way they were before. The news called it mass hysteria. Psychologists said it was some collective delusion. But we parents knew the truth. We saw it in their eyes. They weren't ours anymore. They were something else. Something waiting. Something patient. And every night I still check my closets, my hallways, my bed, because I know she'll come back one day. Not as my daughter, not as Emily, but as whatever is wearing her face. And when she does, I don't think I'll have the strength to turn her away. Story 2. She knows what I did. The first time I realized something was wrong was the night my daughter, Sophie, looked at me and told me a secret I had never spoken aloud. It wasn't a childish secret. It wasn't something she could have overheard. It was something I had buried years ago, something only I knew, and she said it in my own voice. It happened after dinner. Sophie sat at the table swinging her legs, her plate untouched. "Eat your peas," I told her gently. She didn't move, didn't blink, just looked at me with those strange, too bright eyes. Then softly she whispered, "You left him in the woods." The fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. "What did you just say?" Her lips curled into the faintest smile. "You left him there, alone. No one knows but you." I couldn't breathe. I hadn't thought about that night in decades. I was a teenager then, drunk, reckless. A friend of mine had been hurt in an accident and I panicked. I left him there thinking someone else would find him, but no one ever did and no one knew. No one. "How do you know that?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Sophie tilted her head. Her eyes seemed to shimmer, reflecting something I couldn't see. "You told me," she said simply. That night, I hardly slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt her watching me, and when I finally drifted off, I woke to find her standing in the doorway of my bedroom. Her silhouette was small, fragile, but her eyes were huge, glowing faintly in the dark. "You don't deserve to sleep," she whispered. And then she turned and padded back to her room. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was some twisted coincidence. Maybe she overheard something. Maybe she was just messing with me. But then it happened again. This time she told me about the money I stole from my first job. How I took it, spent it, and lied when my boss confronted me. She even mimicked his voice. Word for word. I slammed the table so hard the dishes rattled. "Who's telling you these things?" Her smile widened, slow and deliberate. "You are." I started avoiding her, leaving early for work, coming home late, pretending to be busy with chores, but she always found me. One night, as I sat in the living room pretending to read, she climbed onto the couch beside me. Her small hand touched mine, cold as ice. "You can't hide from yourself," she whispered. I jerked my hand away, heart racing, but when I looked at her, her eyes weren't just bright anymore. They were endless, like staring into a well. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't just repeating secrets, she was feeding on them. I didn't tell my wife. I couldn't. Because the secrets Sophie whispered weren't just mine. They were hers too. And I knew if Sophie had found mine, it was only a matter of time before she found hers. I began locking my bedroom door at night. It didn't help. Every morning when I opened it, Sophie was sitting in the hallway, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the doorknob, waiting. One night, I woke to the sound of her voice inside my room. I sat bolt upright, but the door was still locked. The voice wasn't coming from the hall, it was coming from the closet. I crept over, heart hammering, and pressed my ear against the wood. Her whispers leaked through the slats. "Liar, thief, coward." I threw the door open, but the closet was empty. The next day, she confronted me outright. We were sitting at the breakfast table when she suddenly said, "You tried to run her over." My blood froze. It was true. I was 17, furious after a breakup, drunk out of my mind. I swerved the car at her on the side of the road. I missed, thank God, but I never told anyone. No one knew. Until now. My wife looked up from her coffee, confused. What's she talking about? I forced a laugh, shaking my head. She's just making things up. But Sophie leaned across the table, her eyes wide and unblinking. She's not supposed to know. But I know. That evening I tried to reason with her. "Why are you saying these things?" I begged. Her small voice was calm, steady. "Because it's all you are." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "You're not my daughter," she smiled. "I never said I was." That night I dreamt of eyes. Dozens of them, hundreds. All staring. All whispering. When I woke, Sophie was sitting on my chest, her face inches from mine, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You think you're afraid of me?" she whispered. Her breath was ice against my ear. "But I'm not here for you. I'm here for her." I didn't understand what she meant. Not until 2 days later. That's when Sophie started whispering to my wife. At first it was small things, arguments we'd had, lies I'd told. But then the whispers grew darker. Things I didn't even know about her. One night I woke to the sound of sobbing. My wife was sitting on the floor of the bathroom, pale and shaking. "She told me what I did," she said through tears. "She told me everything. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. Because Sophie wasn't just feeding on me anymore, she was feeding on both of us." The house grew unbearable. Every corner whispered. Every silence felt heavy with secrets. Sometimes at night I'd see Sophie standing at the foot of our bed, not moving, not speaking, just smiling, and then slowly, she'd lift her hands, holding something invisible, offering it to us. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. "What do you want from us?" Her head lolled to the side, eyes wide, mouth curling into a grin far too big for her small face. "I want what you hide." And then she said my friend's name, the one I left in the woods all those years ago. I let her go. My hands trembled, and for the first time I realized Sophie didn't just know what I had done. She was him, she was them, she was all of them. That was weeks ago. Now my wife won't speak to me. Sophie follows us everywhere, and the whispers never stop. At night, they crawl through the walls, the floors, the vents, all the voices of the people I hurt, all the things we never told. They're not secrets anymore. They're hers. And when I look into Sophie's eyes, I know the truth. My daughter came home from school with someone else's eyes, and now, I don't think I'll ever get my real daughter back.